This is Brisbane, Australia's fastest growing city and the 2032 host of the Olympic Games. To handle the millions of spectators set to flood the city in under 10 years' time, it needs an airport that's truly world class. But that's not as easy as it sounds. The current facility is surrounded on all sides, and terminals are plagued by decades-old systems that are grinding to a halt. So, engineers had to get creative. They're building a new runway on a swamp, constructing a bridge strong enough for fully loaded aircraft, and completely overhauling both terminals, all while the airport operates at full capacity. A major runway has already been delivered, but the hard work isn't over yet. With just 7 years to go, can Brisbane finish the job before it's too late? This is the $5 billion race to build an Olympics-ready airport. Brisbane's airport is no stranger to hosting events. Just 3 years after opening in 1925, it made history when the first ever flight across the Pacific touched down on its runway, greeted by a crowd of 25,000 spectators. Fast forward 60 years, and the airport had grown so rapidly that it had to be completely relocated at a cost of $300 million. Since then, it's expanded fast, with 15 major upgrades helping keep pace with Brisbane's growth, including a $150 million international terminal built in 1995 and a $200 million domestic terminal renovation wrapped up in 2011. But by 2007, the cracks were already starting to show. Brisbane's booming popularity meant the airport was suddenly dealing with over 1 million extra passengers every year, and the runway was struggling to keep up.
Brisbane is a very attractive place to live, work and visit. That means the population is growing and people love to travel. We had challenges during peak hours with on-time performance because the runway system we were operating then was just too busy.
So, as part of the long-term expansion plans that would later enable the Brisbane Olympics, the airport decided it needed another runway. But there was one big question. Where could you put it? And that question wasn't as easy to answer as it sounds. To the north is Moreton Bay, a massive stretch of water that runs parallel to the city. Reclaiming land here would have been expensive and made simultaneous runway operations difficult. Not great. To the east lies the Brisbane River, snaking through the heart of the city. Interfering with that would have increased the chances of floods, putting thousands of homes at risk. Definitely not ideal. To the south, there's the main city of Brisbane. Building here would have required the demolition of too many homes, likely losing public support for the project. And then there's the west, an area of dense swampland with soft, unstable soil from decades of sediment build-up. Build here without proper preparation, and your runway could literally sink. So, what to do? With no good options, Brisbane Airport chose a tricky site to the northwest. The Australian government quickly gave its approval in 2007, and everything was looking good. That was until just a year later in 2008.
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
The sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
The financial crisis hit Australia hard, so hard in fact that construction was delayed by 4 years. When work finally resumed in 2012, the airport was still not out of the woods. The ground itself posed massive problems. Soft soil that wasn't just unstable, but acidic enough to corrode steel and concrete foundations. Eventually, the engineers treated the soil and reused it on site. Next was the problem of groundwater. Most of the site was situated on a river delta filled with so much water that engineers compared its consistency to toothpaste. So, to fix this, enough sand to fill over 4,000 Olympic swimming pools was dredged from Moreton Bay and pumped nearly 5 kilometres across to raise the ground level by 3 metres. Then, over 300,000 wick drains were installed into the soil at depths up to 35 metres, which act like giant straws to suck water out of the ground. The team then left the site for nearly 3 years to let the weight of the sand and the wick drains stabilise the ground. By 2017, construction could finally begin. But the first project on the agenda was one of the most difficult the engineers would ever even attempt, building a bridge fit for fully loaded aircraft. The road running beneath the bridge would form a critical link between the outside road network and the terminal area, a job the existing perimeter road just wasn't cut out for. But building a bridge this complex wasn't something Australia attempted very often. The bridge would need to hold an immense amount of weight on a daily basis, so nearly 700 precast rods were inserted into the ground for a strong foundation. 20,000 cubic metres of heavily reinforced concrete was poured on top, and watertight casing was installed on the tunnel walls to hold back the water in the ground. At peak activity, this single project supported more than 250 workers and spanned over a year of construction. With foundational work complete, attention turned to laying down the actual runway, a process that might sound simple, that in reality was anything but. Here, the construction site was essentially a giant sandpit filled with water. And to make things even trickier, the airport had to stay fully operational, which meant work took place mostly overnight. The runway eventually came together in layers. First, the sand had to be carefully shaped, and then 2,000 fully loaded A380s worth of finely crushed rock formed the base layer. For the taxiways, engineers placed enough concrete to fill 70 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and to create the runway surface, 80,000 tons of asphalt was placed on top. That first phase took about 15 months, after which the team installed over 2,000 airfield lights and ran 300 kilometers of electrical cables across the site. Even the grass here was specially prepared and trucked in to make sure it grew fast. And to make sure everything could run smoothly from day one, a new fire station was built on site, and the air traffic control tower was upgraded to handle dual runway operations. But building a new runway also means completely redesigning the skies above, and Brisbane's airspace was already complex. Alongside its main airport, there are 8 smaller airports nearby, meaning every new flight path had to be designed with precision. To do this, new radio beacons were installed in the mountains surrounding the city, connected by a fibre optic backbone running beneath the airfield. A new system was put in place to split operations between the 2 runways. Flights to and from the southeast would use the original runway, while those heading northwest would use the new one. Wherever possible, flight paths were routed over Moreton Bay, keeping aircraft noise away from densely populated areas. And it wouldn't be long until those aircraft started to arrive. The new runway officially opened on the 12th of July 2020 to a mostly positive public. The project was delivered on time, $120 million under budget, and remarkably did so without breaching a single environmental condition. Just 1 year later, the people of Brisbane received the news they'd been waiting for years. On July 21st, 2021, Brisbane was named the official host city for the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And while Brisbane is certainly no stranger to big events, this is something else entirely. To put it into perspective, Paris welcomed 11.2 million tourists during the 3-week period around the 2024 Games. With Brisbane now preparing for something on that scale, the airport needs to match. First up, the domestic terminal. Originally built 35 years ago, it's undergoing a full transformation. Work begun in September 2023, and the upgrades to almost every part of the building are set to finish by the end of this year, with the main focus on improving passenger experience. Although the upgrades would have been needed for the Olympics anyway, the project was kick-started by an Australian aviation security initiative, which mandates the rollout of new CT scanners by the end of 2025. These scanners let passengers keep laptops and other electronics in their bag, but they're bigger and bulkier than existing equipment, which is why they're being shifted to the new upper floor. The baggage systems are also getting a full revamp. The current setup, made of 3 separate systems from the 1980s, is being replaced with a single, centralised and electric motor-powered network. To make space, parts of the pier were expanded, roads realigned, and even a light pole had to be moved. Inside the departure lounge, the changes are happening fast, from locally inspired interiors to new lounge-style seating and 10 new dining outlets, including a 360-degree restaurant with airfield views. Add in new check-in tech, upgraded bathrooms, more parking, and stage-by-stage construction to minimise disruption, and the domestic terminal will be virtually unrecognisable by the end of this year. Across the tarmac, the international terminal is getting a similar overhaul. CT scanners are being installed here too, with screening and passport control moving from the windowless level 3 up to the light-filled level 4. A new baggage system on a mezzanine level will boost capacity while improving efficiency, and self-check-in will be available for all airlines. The duty-free zone will nearly double in size, with new restaurants and retail spaces being added to level 3, and an upgraded arrivals hall on level 2 featuring modern seating and furniture. And to power all of this new tech and the new fully electric ground vehicles, a solar farm now under construction will generate 100% of the airport's electricity by the end of 2025. And finally, a brand new Terminal 3 is in the works. While we don't know much yet, it's planned for completion by 2032 and will sit between the 2 existing runways, becoming a central hub to handle surging Olympic traffic and long-term population growth beyond. So, Brisbane Airport has already pulled off one of Australia's most complex infrastructure projects. Now it's preparing for its biggest challenge yet. From runway extensions to terminal transformations, and solar farms to baggage systems, this is a full-scale reinvention of one of the country's most important travel hubs. And by the time the world arrives for Brisbane 2032, the airport will be ready to welcome it. Brisbane's race to the Olympics is just getting started, and if you're into stories like this one, consider subscribing for more incredible airport transformations.